My sister demanded I give her my savings. I said no, bought a one-way ticket abroad, and started a new career. 2 hours later, Dad texted, "Sign off on her mortgage or don't come back." By midnight, I closed every account she could access, 57 angry calls by morning. I grew up believing family meant unconditional love. What a stupid, naive thing to think. My older sister Madison always got everything she wanted. New car at 16 while I rode the bus until I could buy my own junker at 19. Full ride to college courtesy of Mom and Dad while I worked 3 jobs to pay my tuition. A lavish wedding with 200 guests while I wasn't even allowed 8+1 because budget constraints. The pattern established itself early, and I accepted it like some kind of family gospel. Madison married Trevor, a finance bro who talked big about cryptocurrency investments and disrupting the market but somehow never had money for rent. They lived in my parents' basement for 2 years after the wedding, claiming they were saving for their dream home. Meanwhile, I rented a studio apartment in a sketchy part of town, ate ramen 4 nights a week, and put every spare dollar into my savings account. I worked as a medical transcriptionist, freelancing on the side doing translation work since I taught myself Spanish, French, and Portuguese through free online courses and library books. No fancy degree in languages, just determination and countless hours of practice. The work was tedious, but it paid decently, and I was good at it. Really good. Companies started requesting me specifically for their projects. By the time I turned 27, I'd saved $43,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. Every penny represented a skipped lunch, a canceled streaming subscription, a birthday where I told friends I didn't want to go out because I wasn't feeling well instead of admitting I couldn't afford the trendy restaurant they'd chosen. Last month, Madison called me sobbing. She and Trevor had finally found their perfect house, a 4-bedroom colonial in an upscale suburb with granite countertops and a 3-car garage. The asking price was $670,000. They'd been pre-approved for a mortgage, but their offer kept getting rejected because other buyers were coming in with bigger down payments. "We need $60,000 more for the down payment to compete," Madison said between theatrical sobs. The seller's agent said if we can match the other offer, the house is ours. "This is our dream home, Jenna. Our forever home where we'll raise our children." Madison didn't have children. She had a goldfish named Bitcoin that Trevor won at a carnival. "That's rough," I said, genuinely sympathetic. "Have you talked to the bank about what you can do?" "The bank is useless. We need cash, and we need it now. The seller wants a decision by Friday." Her voice shifted from tearful to irritated. "You have money saved. You could help us." My stomach dropped. "Madison, I have savings for my own future. I can't or won't?" Her tone turned sharp, the tears evaporating instantly. "This is family, Jenna. Family helps family. Unless you're too selfish to care about your own sister's happiness." I tried explaining that $43,000 wasn't even enough for what they needed, that I had my own plans, that maybe they should look at less expensive houses. She hung up on me. 3 days later, she showed up at my apartment with Mom. They had that unified front look, the one they perfected over years of ganging up on me about everything from my haircut to my choice not to attend Madison's friend's baby shower. "We need to talk about you helping Madison," Mom said, settling onto my second-hand couch like she was chairing a board meeting. "I already explained to Madison that I can't give her my savings," I replied, remaining standing. A power move I'd learned from years of being on the defensive. "Can't or won't?" Madison repeated her earlier line. Apparently, she thought it was effective. "You're sitting on all this money, living in this dump, with no husband, no kids, nothing to spend it on. We're asking you to invest in family." "Invest implies a return," I said quietly. "You're asking me to give you $43,000. "Not even the full amount we need," Madison scoffed. "We're going to have to borrow from Trevor's parents for the rest. Do you know how humiliating that is? Meanwhile, you're hoarding money like some kind of dragon." Mom chimed in with her favorite guilt trip, "Your sister has always been there for you." I almost laughed. Madison had been there for me exactly twice in my entire life. Once when she picked me up from school after I got food poisoning in 8th grade, only because she wanted to leave early herself. The second time when she helped me move into my studio apartment, spent an hour complaining about the neighborhood, then left before we'd even unpacked half the boxes. "I can't give you my savings," I repeated, firmer this time. "That's my final answer." Madison's face transformed into something ugly. "You selfish bitch. You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting something nice, that I'm building a real life while you're stuck in this pathetic little existence." Mom didn't defend me. She never did. She just sighed like I was the problem, like my refusal to bankrupt myself was an unreasonable character flaw. They left, and I cried for an hour. Then I got angry. Then I did something I'd been fantasizing about for months but never had the courage to execute. I opened my laptop and started researching international remote work opportunities for medical transcriptionists and translators. Within 3 hours, I'd applied to 14 companies based in Spain, Portugal, and France. Within 2 days, I had 3 interview requests. Within a week, I had a job offer from a medical translation company based in Barcelona that paid 20% more than my current income, with full remote flexibility from anywhere in Europe. I accepted immediately. Then I bought a one-way ticket to Lisbon, Portugal, leaving in 11 days. I'd always wanted to live abroad, had been studying Portuguese specifically because something about the language called to me. The cost of living was lower than where I currently lived, the weather was beautiful, and most importantly, I'd be 5,000 miles away from my family's constant demands. I told my landlord I wouldn't be renewing my lease. I sold most of my furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I packed my life into 2 suitcases and 1 carry-on. I didn't tell my parents or Madison. Why would I? They'd made it clear that my only value was as a walking ATM. The morning of my flight, I posted a simple message in our family group chat: I've accepted a job abroad and am leaving the country today. I'll be in touch when I'm settled. I turned off my phone and headed to the airport. The flight was peaceful. 13 hours of nobody demanding anything from me, nobody making me feel guilty for having boundaries, nobody calling me selfish for wanting to keep what I'd earned. I slept better on that plane than I had in months. I landed in Lisbon on a Tuesday morning. The air smelled like salt and pastéis de nata. I took a taxi to the short-term rental I'd booked for my first month, a sunny studio in Alfama with azulejo tiles and a balcony overlooking terracotta roofs. It cost less than half what I'd been paying in the States. I turned my phone back on around 2 p.m. local time, 9 a.m. back home. 53 missed calls. 47 text messages. 12 voicemails. The most recent text was from Dad: sign off on her mortgage or don't come back. I read it 3 times, waiting for rage or hurt or something. Instead, I felt nothing. A weird, liberating emptiness. Madison and Trevor had apparently convinced my parents to co-sign their mortgage, but the bank required additional guarantors because Trevor's credit score was temporarily compromised. Translation: terrible. They'd told the bank I would co-sign. They'd forged my initial on preliminary documents. The bank had contacted me for final verification, and when they couldn't reach me, the whole deal started falling apart. The next text from Dad: your mother is devastated. Madison has been crying for hours. This is what your selfishness has caused. If you don't fix this immediately, you're no longer our daughter. Mom's texts were more manipulative: how can you abandon your sister like this? She needs you. We raised you better than this. Please call me. I'm worried sick about you, even though you clearly don't care about this family. Madison's messages were pure venom: you absolute snake. You knew we were counting on this. You left the country to avoid helping me? I hope you fail at whatever pathetic life you're trying to build. You're dead to me. Trevor, whom I'd barely spoken to in 4 years of him being married to my sister, sent: you're selfish and immature. Family is supposed to help each other. You're going to regret this. The misspelling of "you're" in a message calling me immature was almost poetic. I made coffee using the espresso maker in my rental. Portuguese coffee hits different, stronger and more honest somehow. I sat on my balcony, looking out at the Tagus River in the distance, and thought about what to do next. They wanted me to co-sign a mortgage for $610,000 for 2 people with unstable finances and a history of poor decisions. If they defaulted, which seemed likely given Trevor's track record, I'd be legally responsible for a debt that would destroy my financial future. They expected me to risk everything I'd worked for so Madison could have granite countertops. The audacity was almost impressive. I started going through my accounts, reviewing everything systematically. When I was 21, Mom had convinced me to add Madison as an authorized user on one of my credit cards to help her build credit after Trevor tanked hers with some failed business venture. I'd forgotten about it, had barely used that card myself in years. I removed her immediately. Then I remembered the joint savings account. When Grandma died 5 years ago, she left me and Madison each $15,000. Dad suggested we put our inheritances in a joint account to keep it in the family and teach us to share resources. I'd been 22 and too intimidated to argue. I'd contributed an additional $8,000 to that account over the years from various freelance bonuses. Madison had contributed nothing and had actually withdrawn $3,000 2 years ago for her honeymoon. I checked the balance, $35,200. I did the math quickly. My inheritance of $15,000, plus my $8,000 in contributions, minus the $3,000 Madison had already taken, meant I was owed $20,000 from this account. Madison's $15,000 inheritance remained untouched by her. I transferred my $20,000 into my personal account and left her $15,000 in the joint account before closing it and opening a new one in my name only with the transferred funds. I went through every single financial connection I had to my family. A shared Costco membership where I'd stupidly made Madison an authorized user? Removed her. The shared family phone plan I'd been paying 40% of despite using the leased data? I pulled my number and switched to a Portuguese carrier. The streaming services I'd been sharing passwords for? Changed every single password. By midnight Lisbon time, I'd severed every financial thread that connected me to them. The calls started around 3 a.m. my time. I'd forgotten to account for the time difference. My phone literally didn't stop ringing. I turned off the ringer and watched the notifications pile up in silent succession. By 8 a.m. Lisbon time, 3 a.m. back home, I had 57 missed calls. The voicemails ranged from Dad's cold fury to Mom's weepy guilt trips to Madison's unhinged screaming. Trevor left one that was just heavy breathing and what sounded like him punching a wall. The texts were even better. Madison, you stole from our joint account. That's theft. I'm calling the police. Dad, removing your sister from your accounts in the middle of her mortgage process is financial sabotage. You've crossed a line you can't uncross. Mom, please tell me you didn't close the account with Grandma's money. That was meant for both of you. She's watching from heaven and she's disappointed in you. The manipulation was almost beautiful in its construction. They twisted every boundary I'd set into a crime I'd committed. Madison sent a follow-up. The bank rejected our application because we can't verify financial stability. We lost the house. I hope you're happy. You've ruined my life because you're a jealous, vindictive witch. I sipped my Portuguese coffee and watched the sunrise paint the buildings across from me in shades of pink and gold. I felt lighter than I had in years. Around noon my time, the messages started getting desperate. Mom, your father had chest pains last night from the stress. If something happens to him, it's on you. This was her signature move. Dad's health had been the trump card for every argument since I was 16. Somehow, his mystery chest pains only appeared when I didn't comply with family demands. Madison, Trevor's parents are furious and blaming me. His mother said I come from a family of flakes and liars. Do you even care what you've done? Actually, Trevor's mom had a point. Dad, your mother and I have discussed this. You need to come home immediately, sign the cosigner documents, restore Madison's access to your accounts, and apologize to your sister. If you do this within the next 48 hours, we'll consider forgiving you. The sheer entitlement made me laugh out loud. Forgiving me? For protecting my own money? For refusing to ruin my financial future for a sister who'd called me a selfish bitch? I typed one response and sent it to the family group chat. I'm not coming home. I'm not co-signing anything. I'm not restoring access to my accounts. My finances are no longer your concern. I hope you all find a way to move forward without me. Then I muted the conversation. My phone exploded again. I turned it off completely and went for a walk through Alfama. The neighborhood was a labyrinth of narrow streets and colorful tiles, filled with the sound of fado music drifting from open windows. An old woman selling flowers smiled at me. A cat sunned itself on ancient cobblestones. Nobody knew me here. Nobody wanted anything from me here. I started my new job the following Monday. The company was incredible, my colleagues were spread across 7 countries, and for the first time in my professional life, people respected my expertise. They valued my language skills, praised my attention to detail, and actually paid me what I was worth. The first month in Lisbon felt like waking up from a decades-long nightmare. Every morning, I'd step onto my balcony with coffee and remind myself that nobody here knew the old version of me. The version who apologized for taking up space. The version who second-guessed every purchase over $20. The version who answered every family phone call with anxiety already tightening in her chest. My new routine established itself naturally. I worked from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., my schedule flexible enough that I could take long lunch breaks to explore the neighborhood. There was a small cafe 3 blocks from my apartment where the owner, an elderly man named Joel, started recognizing me by my second week. He'd have my bica ready before I even ordered, served with a small pastel de nata that he'd wave away when I tried to pay extra for it. Parati, he'd say with a warm smile. For you. No strings attached. No expectation of anything in return. Just kindness because kindness existed without transaction. It was such a foreign concept that I almost cried the first time he did it. Work itself became something I actually looked forward to rather than endured. My supervisor, a woman named Claire who worked from Lyon, France, scheduled a video call during my first week to check in. I'd braced myself for criticism or unrealistic demands, but instead, she spent 30 minutes asking about my transition to Portugal, recommending her favorite spots in Lisbon, and praising the quality of my first 3 assignments. You're a natural at this, Claire said, her French accent making everything sound elegant. The medical terminology, the cultural nuances in translation, you catch things our other translators miss. Where did you study? I hesitated before admitting the truth. I'm self-taught. Just a lot of library books and online resources. Her eyes widened on the screen. Self-taught? That's remarkable. Most of our translators have advanced degrees. You should be proud of what you've accomplished. Proud. I'd spent so much of my life being told to be humble, to not brag, to minimize my achievements so Madison wouldn't feel bad by comparison. Hearing someone tell me to be proud felt revolutionary. The team was scattered globally, which meant our communication happened primarily through Slack and email. There was Martin in Berlin who shared terrible puns in 4 languages. Yuki in Tokyo who always had the most thorough feedback on tricky medical documents. Anastasia in Athens who organized virtual coffee breaks where we'd all log on and chat about nothing work-related for 30 minutes. These people became my colleagues, then my friends, faster than any friendship I'd formed back home. There was no history weighing us down, no family dynamics complicating every interaction. We were just people who respected each other's work and enjoyed each other's company. 3 weeks into my Portuguese adventure, I received a certified letter at my new permanent rental address. Somehow they tracked me down. Inside was a formal demand from Madison's lawyer claiming I had breached a verbal family contract by removing her access to my accounts, and that I owed her $43,000 in promised financial support. Later, I figured out how they'd found me. When I'd updated my mailing address with my bank for my new Portuguese account, I'd forgotten that Mom still had access to my email, an old shared family account I'd set up years ago for coordinating holidays that I'd stupidly never removed her from. She must have seen the bank confirmation email with my new address. I changed that password immediately after realizing my mistake. There was no verbal contract. No promise. No legal standing whatsoever. I took the letter to a lawyer in Lisbon, mostly out of curiosity. She read it, raised one eyebrow, and said in perfect English, "This is what we call wishful thinking in document form. You owe them nothing. Don't even respond. They're trying to intimidate you." I paid her for the consultation and walked out feeling validated in a way I'd never experienced with my own family. Madison's marriage fell apart 4 months after I left. Turns out Trevor had been hiding significant gambling debts. His parents refused to help them anymore, and without my parents' basement to fall back on, Dad finally put his foot down about that. They had nowhere to go. Madison moved back in with Mom and Dad. Trevor moved back to his hometown. I learned all this through my cousin Rachel, who'd reached out to me privately through social media. She'd always been the cool cousin, the one who saw through family politics. She told me that everyone was blaming me for Madison's divorce, somehow spinning it so that if I'd just helped with the house, everything would have been fine. Rachel sent me screenshots of the family group chat I'd been removed from. The messages were a masterclass in deflection and blame shifting. Aunt Linda, if Jenna had just been there for Madison like family should be, none of this would have happened. That house would have saved their marriage. Uncle Bob always knew that girl was cold. Never understood family values. Mom, we tried our best raising her. Sometimes one child just turns out different. Madison is here with us, heartbroken, while Jenna is off gallivanting in Europe without a care in the world. The narrative they'd constructed was impressive in its complete detachment from reality. In their version, I was a villain who'd destroyed Madison's marriage through sheer selfishness. Trevor's gambling addiction didn't exist. His pattern of financial irresponsibility was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was that I'd refused to sacrifice my financial security for a mortgage I could never afford. Rachel also filled me in on details she'd gathered from actually being around for the implosion. Trevor hadn't just been gambling. He'd been sports betting through illegal websites, racking up debts to some genuinely dangerous people. The collectors had started showing up at my parents' house looking for him, which was apparently the final straw that made Dad kick them out. "Your sister spent weeks crying about losing the house," Rachel told me during a video call. But honestly, the house was never going to happen. Even if you'd co-signed, even if they'd gotten it, they would have lost it within a year. Trevor's debts were close to $80,000. $80,000. They'd wanted me to tie myself legally to people who were secretly drowning in debt they'd never mentioned. If I co-signed that mortgage, I'd be financially ruined right now, probably having to return to the States to deal with collectors and lawsuits. "Does Madison know how much you saved her?" Rachel asked. "Madison will never see it that way," I replied. "In her mind, I'm the reason everything fell apart. It's easier than admitting she married a man with a serious problem." Rachel nodded. "Mom's been calling me asking if I know how to reach you. She wants to make things right apparently. I told her I haven't heard from you." "Thank you for that. Always. You did the right thing, Jenna. I know it probably doesn't feel like it sometimes, but you really did." The validation from someone who actually knew the full situation meant more than she probably realized. I'd spent so many nights questioning myself, wondering if I was actually the selfish monster they painted me as. Having Rachel confirm that I'd made the right choice helped silence those doubts. As months passed, I started building a real life in Lisbon. I joined a language exchange group that met every Thursday at a bar in Bairro Alto. The format was simple, half the time speaking Portuguese, half the time speaking English, helping each other improve. That's where I met Miguel. He was terrible at English. I mean truly, hilariously bad. But he tried so hard, stumbling through sentences with this earnest determination that made me laugh in the best way. His eyes crinkled when he smiled, and he had this habit of running his hand through his dark hair when he got frustrated with grammar. "Your Portuguese is so good," he said to me one evening after the exchange ended. "How long you are here?" "How long have I been here?" I corrected gently. 5 months. 5 months. Impossible. You speak like Portuguese person. I studied for 2 years before I moved. I wanted to be ready. He looked impressed. You plan everything, yes? Yes. I like having a plan. I am. Opposite. How you say? Spontaneous? Spontaneous, I confirmed. We started getting coffee after the language exchanges. Then coffee turned into dinners. Then dinners turned into long walks through the city where he'd show me hidden viewpoints tourists never found. He worked as a software developer for a startup, spent his free time rock climbing, and had absolutely no interest in drama or complicated family dynamics. When I finally told him about why I'd left the States, he listened quietly, then said simply, "Your family, they did not see you. They see only what they want from you. Is different." It is different, I agreed. Here, you are just Jenna. Not the sister, not the daughter. Just you. Is better, I think. It was better. Exponentially better. Miguel introduced me to his family 3 months into dating. I was terrified they'd be invasive or demanding, but his mother Beatriz greeted me with genuine warmth and immediately started teaching me how to make proper caldo verde. His father Antonio spent an hour showing me his collection of vinyl records and didn't ask a single intrusive question about my life. His younger sister Inez, a university student studying architecture, pulled me aside at one point and said, "Miguel is so happy since meeting you. We can tell. Thank you for making him smile so much." The simplicity of their acceptance floored me. No ulterior motives, no keeping score of who did what for whom. Just a family that genuinely liked each other and welcomed me without conditions. Work continued going exceptionally well. 6 months after I left, I got promoted. My therapist in Lisbon, yes, I finally started therapy, told me I was doing what was necessary for my mental health. She said families like mine operate on a system where one person is designated the giver and everyone else takes. Breaking that system feels violent to them because they lose their source of supply. Dr. Catarina's office was in a converted townhouse in Principe Real, with tall windows that let in afternoon light and plants everywhere. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair she wore in a long braid and a direct way of speaking that I appreciated after years of my mother's passive-aggressive communication style. Our first session, I cried through most of it. Just explaining the situation, hearing myself say out loud what had happened, broke something open in me. Dr. Catarina handed me tissues and waited patiently until I could speak again. "What you're describing is a family system built on a scapegoat and a golden child," she said. "Madison was elevated, and you were diminished. This served everyone's purposes except yours." "But families are supposed to support each other," I said, echoing what I'd been told my entire life. "Support, yes. Exploitation, no. There is a difference between helping someone and setting yourself on fire to keep them warm." Over the following months, we unpacked decades of conditioning. How I'd learned to make myself small so Madison could seem bigger. How I'd internalized the idea that my needs were inherently less important. How I confused loyalty with self-destruction. Dr. Catarina introduced me to the concept of the missing reasons, a pattern where family members claim they don't understand why someone cut contact, but the reality is they've been told repeatedly and simply refuse to accept those reasons as valid. "Your father's text, sign off on her mortgage or don't come back, that was very clear," Dr. Catarina said. "He gave you an ultimatum. You chose yourself. Now they are rewriting history to make themselves victims of your cruelty rather than accepting they pushed you away with their demands. Sometimes I feel guilty anyway, I admit it. Guilt is the tool they installed in you to maintain control. It will take time to uninstall it. Be patient with yourself." The therapy was hard work. Some sessions left me emotionally exhausted, crying on Miguel's couch while he rubbed my back and didn't try to fix anything. But slowly, the guilt started loosening its grip. I began recognizing manipulation patterns when Rachel would forward family messages. I stopped wondering if maybe I was the problem. Around this time, I also joined an online support group for people who'd gone no contact with family. The community was international, people from dozens of countries who'd all made the same difficult choice. Their stories varied wildly in specifics but shared the same core: families who couldn't respect boundaries, who demanded everything and offered nothing, who confused love with control. One woman, Sarah from Canada, had cut off her mother after years of financial abuse. She'd steal my credit cards, open accounts in my name, then cry and say I was abandoning her when I'd try to hold her accountable. It took me until I was 35 to realize that wasn't normal. Another member, James from Australia, had been the family ATM for his 3 siblings. Every emergency, every crisis, they'd come to me. My brother's car broke down, my sister needed dental work, my other brother's rent was late. I was working 70-hour weeks to fund their lives while barely scraping by myself. When I finally said no, they told everyone I'd become selfish and cruel. Hearing these stories helped me understand I wasn't alone. The specifics differed, but the pattern was universal: one person designated as the giver, everyone else feeling entitled to take, and complete shock and fury when the giver finally stops giving. They miss what you did for them, not who you are, one group member said during a discussion thread. That sentence hit me like a physical blow because of how true it felt. Madison didn't miss her sister. She missed her bank account. Mom and Dad didn't miss their daughter. They missed the mediator who kept peace, the one they could always count on to fold. Work became my refuge during this emotional processing. Claire promoted me to senior medical translator and assigned me to more complex projects. I was working on translating clinical trial documentation from Portuguese and Spanish into English, technical work that required absolute precision and deep understanding of medical terminology. The research was fascinating. I'd spend hours learning about new drug treatments, surgical procedures, rare diseases. The work demanded my full attention, which meant I wasn't dwelling on family drama. And unlike my family, my work appreciated the effort I put in. Every project came with feedback, always positive, always specific about what I'd done well. Your attention to cultural context is exceptional, Claire wrote in one evaluation. You don't just translate words, you translate meaning. That's rare. I printed that evaluation and put it on my wall. Evidence that I had value beyond being a source of money or emotional labor. My social life expanded in unexpected ways. Inez, Miguel's sister, started inviting me to events with her university friends. They were a lively group of architecture and design students who'd meet at parks to sketch buildings or gather at someone's apartment for wine and animated debates about urban planning. They treated me like I'd always been part of the group. Nobody asked invasive questions about my past. When I mentioned I was from the States, they wanted to know what I thought about Portuguese architecture, what differences I noticed, whether I missed American food. Normal questions. Friendly curiosity without agenda. One evening, sitting in a park with Inez and her friends, watching the sunset paint everything orange and pink, I felt genuinely happy. Not the absence of sadness, but actual contentment. Joy, even. When was the last time I'd felt that back home? Probably never. You are smiling, Inez observed. A real smile, not a polite one. I didn't realize there was a difference, I said. There is always a difference. Before, your smiles were. She searched for the word, careful. Now they are real. She was right. I'd spent so many years being careful, guarding every expression, every word, worried about how my family would react or what they'd demand next. Here, I could just exist without that constant vigilance. Miguel noticed the change too. You are more relaxed now than when we met, he said one night while we cooked dinner together in my apartment. In the beginning, you were always looking over the shoulder. Like expecting bad news. I was always expecting bad news, I admitted. My family trained me to be in a constant state of emergency preparedness. Someone always needed something, someone was always mad about something, someone was always keeping score. That sounds exhausting. It was. I didn't realize how exhausted I was until I stopped living that way. He kissed my forehead. I am glad you are here. I'm glad you chose yourself. Choosing myself. That's what I'd done, and everyone back home had treated it like an act of war. But it wasn't. It was simply the first time I'd ever prioritized my own well-being over their convenience. They're delusional, Rachel wrote. Your sister's husband was a mess. That marriage was doomed whether she got the house or not. But you make a good scapegoat since you're not here to defend yourself. Rachel also told me that Mom had been telling relatives I'd abandoned the family in their time of need and that I was living off my savings selfishly in Europe. The irony of that last part would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. I didn't defend myself to the extended family. The people who mattered, like Rachel, knew the truth. The others could believe whatever narrative made them comfortable. 6 months after I left, Dad sent one final message: your mother had a small stroke. Mild, but the doctor says stress is a major factor. I hope you can live with yourself. I researched it through Rachel. Mom had a minor TIA, a transient ischemic attack. She was fine within hours. But they were absolutely using it as ammunition, telling everyone that my abandonment had literally made her ill. I blocked Dad's number. I blocked Mom's number. I blocked Madison's number. I kept Rachel and 2 older cousins who'd always been kind to me. Everyone else got cut off. My therapist in Lisbon, yes, I finally started therapy, told me I was doing what was necessary for my mental health. She said families like mine operate on a system where one person is designated the giver and everyone else takes. Breaking that system feels violent to them because they lose their source of supply. You're not the villain in their story, she said in her calm Portuguese accent. You're just the first one who said no. A year after I left, I got promoted.